Welcome to the information session for Mastering Design Thinking. I think folks are just starting to join now. Great to have you all here this morning. It's morning for me anyways. I just want to bring your attention to a few features of Canvas that you might want to be aware of as we move through this 45-minute session. If you are just joining us, welcome to information session for Mastering Design Thinking. If you look down at the bottom of your screen there's a couple of buttons there. One of them's a Q&A and the other is a chat button. So if you click on that chat button, you'll open up a Zoom webinar chat. And down at the bottom there's a little blue bar that says the default is all panelists. If you want to switch that to all panelists and attendees, we'll be using that chat feature quite a bit this session. And also there is a Q&A bar or button down there as well. So if you have questions, and that's our goal here is to answer your questions, you will be able to type those into the Q&A. So just to make sure that you all are able to use the chat, if you could go ahead and just type into that chat once you've changed it to all panelists and attendees, just type in where you're joining us from. Aha, we got our first right there. We have a hi from Sandir. Great, people from all over the world, fantastic. Looks like everybody has found the button. So one of the great things about these classes is that we can do this from all over the world. I'm joining you from Arizona. We have our program support in India, and we have Isabella and Lauren from Boston. So let's go ahead and get started. My name's Brian Cooperwriter. I'll tell you a little bit more about myself later on. Welcome to all of you. Juliana from Rio, Juan from Basel. Great. We got folks from all over the world. All right. We are going to start this with a quick icebreaker just to give you an idea of, a very quick idea of what we do in this course. So we're going to show you a quick video. Why don't we move on to the next slide there, and program support's going to queue up that video for us. And I'm going to ask you, while they're getting that video ready, I'm going to ask you to, it's a 60-second video, I'm going to ask you to just observe. Use your eyes to see what happens, your ears maybe. What we do in design is we spend a lot of time doing observations to really understand what's going on. So in 60 seconds, we'll show you a quick video. I'm going to ask you to just use your eyes, make some observations, and afterwards I'll ask you some questions based on what you saw. So if we could move on to the video and get that going. All right, no need to worry about the sound, just use your eyes. All right. It's actually kind of between needs and solutions. So we want to make sure in this section we stay into needs, and then we start translating those into solutions. Need to know about construction, Jane. So that's a great observation as well. There is a need for safety as well. So this is an example of a project that was actually done by one of our students in this course. Here you can see their rough sketches for a device that they created. I'm laughing at that comment. There's definitely a need for bike lanes all over the world, and certainly in places like New York City. So this is a project, if we could move to the next slide, called Blinky, that our students came up with some runs ago. And this is a turn-by-turn navigation system for bikes. And of course, that includes not just bikes that are powered by humans, but bikes that are motorized as well. And if we move to the next slide, you can see some of the details about their product. And this is straight from their final presentation at the conclusion of the course. Of course, not all of our projects, most of our projects through this course are service-based and not product-based, but we include all of those. And of course, that decision, we'll talk about how we get there in just a moment. All right, let's move on to the next slide. Oh. Well, thank you, of course. All right, let's move on one more. All right, I am going to very quickly just introduce Lauren and Isabella, and I'm going to let them tell you a little bit about themselves. I think we're moving on to Isabella, is that right?
I'll quickly introduce myself, Lauren Hogg, working as a program manager for MIT Sloan Executive Education.
And I'm Isabella DeMambro, Assistant Director of Digital Deliveries at MIT Sloan Executive Education. Welcome everyone to this webinar. It's so great to have you join us. I'll hand it back over to Lauren.
Yeah, we're going to quickly walk through the agenda for today and then takeaways and outcomes. So first things first, the learning outcomes that you'll have during the Mastering Design Thinking. We're going to talk more about what Mastering Design Thinking will entail, and then assignments and key dates. We're going to finish off this webinar with a quick question and answers. So Brian will be able to moderate that, and we'll be able to answer any questions that you may have. Quickly, the program objectives and outcomes. Upon completion of this course, you will understand the design thinking process and ways to generate and evaluate new product and service concepts based on customer needs, similar to the bike example that Brian just walked you through, using real win-worth framework to evaluate new product and service concepts, implement a proven method, and plan and execute a prototype. And then we're going to select a product architecture and evaluate the economics of product development. And then finally, you'll be able to learn design products and services with sustainability in mind. So that will be your overall program objectives, and I'll give it over to Isabella to talk through more about what is design thinking.
Great, thanks, Lauren. So before we go too much further, I just want to quickly touch base on what design thinking actually is. We saw a great example from Blinky just now that Brian walked us through. So I know that we all have a vague understanding of it, but to put a more precise definition to it, design thinking is a powerful process of problem solving that begins with understanding unmet customer needs. From that insight emerges a process for innovation that encompasses concept development, applied creativity, prototyping, and experimentation. When design thinking approaches are applied to business, the success rate for innovation improves substantially. So now that we have a working definition of design thinking, let's talk a little bit about why this program might be a good fit for you. From this program, you will take away a toolkit to bolster your own creativity and influence your organization. We're not just teaching you bits and bytes, we're teaching you methodology which does not set out to provide solutions so much as offers a theoretical underpinning for understanding which method, set of methods, or best practices can be applied to your specific case. You will learn a new skill set plus confidence to take this back and implement it in your own work. And let me stress this, mastering design thinking is not just for those at Fortune 500 companies. Design thinking can be applied powerfully to any organization or project, any size. This program is for individuals and teams who want to learn a proven, systematic approach to developing new products and services. Businesses thrive on innovation, and the Mastering Design Thinking program will help you create products and services that are desirable, feasible, and viable. Just to dive a little deeper into those three key dimensions, desirability. Is there a customer need for my product? Are you solving a real problem? What are we helping our customers complete? What are they trying to do? And why is it important for them? Feasibility. Can I actually create the product I envision? How can we build on the strengths of our current operational capabilities, looking internally and objectively to assess our strengths, either individually or as an organization? How can we build this solution to make our businesses stronger? And finally, viability. Is it a profitable solution with a sustainable business model? Does our solution contribute to long-term growth? Will customers actually want to pay and use our solution? At MIT, our motto is mens et manus, or mind in hand. Our teaching and research philosophy is practical application to put into practice what you learn. This motto implies that we not only think about doing great things, but we actually do them. MIT believes in generating new ideas and building them to improve lives around the world. This is what sets our programs apart. We do not solely stress the knowledge of how to do something, but rather we require you to actually roll up your sleeves and do what you learn. That is the approach we take on our programs and what you will absolutely find in Mastering Design Thinking. And now I'll hand it over to Lauren to tell you about the fantastic MIT faculty who will be guiding you on your Mens at Manus learning journey.
Perfect. First off, with our faculty that we are very excited about teaching this program is Stephen Eppinger. He's the General Motors Leader for Global Operations Professor, a Professor of Management Science and Engineering Systems, and the co-director of the System Design and Management program at MIT Sloan. Next, we have Renee Richardson-Gosline. She's a senior lecturer in the Management Science Group at MIT Sloan School of Management. She has been named one of the world's top 40 professors under 40 by Poets and Quaints. We're very excited to have Renee. In addition to that, Matthew Cressy is the director and founder of the MIT Integrated Design and Management, IDM, known as Master's Degree Track, and is an expert in product design and development. David Robertson is our final faculty, and he's a senior lecturer at MIT Sloan School of Management, where he teaches product development and digital product management. And after that, we're going to talk through our facilitators. I'll hand it over to Brian to talk through that slide.
Thanks, Lauren. If you join the course, you'll get to know your facilitators a lot better. I am one of those, but I'm going to start with Jerome. I'll just tell you real quickly about all of our facilitators. Jerome has his training at the Rhode Island School of Design, teaches at MIT right now as well, and has some industry experience working in the design world as well. You have a great cross-section of education here, which is what I love about this course. Jerome at the Rhode Island School of Design. I'm Brian Cooperrider. I'm also one of your course facilitators for the next run. My training is at the Stanford Design School, so I have both my undergraduate and master's degree in product design from Stanford. I run a small business with my wife, and I was a professor of design for about 12 years before I decided to move on and pursue consulting more as a full-time operation. Needy is probably not joining us on this next run, but she is a graduate student at MIT, and with a background in electrical engineering. And Jen has 2 master's degrees from MIT. So you can see you've got the whole swath of design training in this run, which is really fantastic. And Jen has a whole bunch of experience in creativity, also in design with some Six Sigma training, so a background in business as well. So you have a whole pile of talent to help you out through this course. Let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. Oh, great. I'm going to turn it, I think, back to Lauren.
Oh, I'll take this slide, Brian.
Oh, sorry. Back to Isabella.
So just to walk through our design thinking experience here, you will be actively learning, actively applying the learnings throughout the program in your everyday work at your organizations or your personal projects. Each week, you will work through your module and then go back to your organization and apply what you have learned. Come back to class the following week to compare notes with your classmates and to engage on what worked, what you might have done differently. You have another opportunity each week to apply new learnings and build on the foundations created in each module. As we've said, Mastering Design Thinking, it is mens et manus, mind in hand, learning in action. Emeritus has created an experience of this program that brings energy, engagement, and excitement. Following the principles of latest neuroscience of learning, this program is interactive with the right amount of engagement from faculty, learning facilitators, and peer learners, all the while maintaining the rigor and feel of what you would expect by attending an MIT program. It's a globally connected program where 2/3 of the learning time is devoted to hands-on, practical application of concepts through working in collaborative teams or learning circles. In this program, you really do learn from one another. There is a breadth of experience to be gained from your co-learners. This program gives you the ability to network and to connect to people in your teams and in your class, learning from one another's experiences and knowledge. And I'll hand it back over to Brian to talk a little bit more about how the programs run.
Thanks, Isabella. I want to emphasize something Isabella said earlier, which is this isn't just for Fortune 500 company and employees of those companies. Our goal here in this course is to really help you understand the mindset of design thinking and to give you some tools to take back to your personal projects, your business, whatever that might be. And that is the goal. We don't expect to launch companies out of here, and that isn't our focus. The focus is to use that project, like the Blinky that you saw earlier, as a vehicle to teach you the tools of design thinking. So let me tell you a little bit about how the course works. First of all, you self-select into teams, so we do work in teams. And one of the things that really makes this course different online than all sorts of other courses is you do collaborate, as Isabella said, with people from all over the world, and you have a live and active support group that is there to make sure that you understand the material and that can answer your questions. So that's really a feature that I want to emphasize before we launch into all the details here. So you will self-select into teams. You will present ideas to each other, discuss that with the team. You'll end up selecting one idea to pursue for the duration of the course. That'll be your capstone project. You will meet weekly to complete those group assignments, and we have a variety of support ways. We have office hours, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then at the end, you'll deliver that capstone project using that real win worth it framework that Isabella talked about just a few moments ago. And let me tell you a little bit, if we can move on to the next slide, I'll tell you a little bit about the nuts and bolts about how things work. I'll give you a quick overview here. I'm not going to spend too much on this slide. I want to make sure we have some time to answer your questions here in our short webinar. But this, you probably can't read those words in there, but this is just really kind of a note, just to kind of a map to show you how we step through this course, which is learning the basics of that, the design thinking process, using that real win worth it framework. So that real part, just to mention this one more time, is going out and doing observations, understanding the climate in which there might be problems, and finding a need and translating that need into kind of an actionable subset, meaning that we're going to take a look at that need and we are going to see whether or not it's feasible. So that's the win part. Can we turn that need into an actionable path forward? And then lastly, we do some economic analysis on that, and we give you all of the tools through this course to be able to pursue that, understand it, and get through the process. All right, let's move on to the next slide, and I'll tell you a little bit about, if we can move on to the next slide there we go. So Design Thinking the MIT Way, there are 128 video lectures, and they come in small bites. So they range from, some of them just a minute and a half up to about 10 minutes. So you have the opportunity to watch those throughout the day. So we've broken that down into a manageable time period for you to pursue the course. There are 3 live teaching sessions, 3 group projects, 10 assignments. Those are individual assignments. So the course consists of a mix of individual assignments as well as team assignments. So you'll be doing some things on your own, and you'll be working with your team as well. You have that final capstone project as well. Let's move on to the next slide, and we'll actually look at the details of what those assignments are. Actually, let me mention real quick, you have some learning facilitator sessions. So there are weekly, twice weekly, there are office hours, that's what we call them, with your learning facilitators. So we are available to talk about content, to answer your questions. We provide examples of the material that's been presented in the course, so you can see your colleagues' work, as well as providing you real world examples to help step you through that design thinking process. And then there's some specific focused webinars. There's an introduction webinar, which helps us get you started for the semester to answer those questions of how do I find a team, and also to introduce the learning facilitators a little bit more extensively so you can get to know us a little bit better. We talk about interview skills, which is really a kind of an introduction to empathy and how you head out and start observing in an area that interests you. And then we also have a couple of, we have a learning journeys and a mapping webinar as well that's focused on that. And those are learning facilitator webinars or focused office hours with their learning facilitators. And if we move on to the next slide, we'll just show you kind of a quick overview of what this looks like in terms of the amount of individual and teamwork you have. So there are 10 assignments. You can see those in there. You submitting your opportunities. That's where we start. We have you look as individuals for what opportunities and areas you might want to explore further as a project idea for the course. So there's a bunch of different ones there, an experience cycle map, you know, a prototyping homework assignment of some sort. So there's 10 individual assignments there. And then there are 4 team assignments. And those are ones where you collaborate with your team and submit things that are a little bit more detailed. And we provide you as course leaders with extensive feedback on how to move forward and areas to take note of and what's working and not working. And then of course, lastly, your capstone project, which is the culmination of all of your work during the course. All right, let's move on to the next slide there. Oh, let me turn this back, and maybe this time I do turn it back over to Lauren.
Yes. Yes, I'll be talking through just briefly how this program fits into our larger executive education certificate options that are available to you if you complete this program. This slide shows you kind of a sample of your completion certificate that you would receive after completing this course in its entirety. If you go to the next slide, we'll talk through a little bit more of the details of what we offer here in earning a certificate of completion, and then some of our other offers through executive education. You will receive, as mentioned, a certificate of completion for fulfilling the objectives of this program. The program counts towards an MIT Sloan Executive Certificate as well as an ACE. So we have two separate certificate options that are available to you. The Advanced Certificate for Executives is the ACE. So we'll typically say ACE. If you hear me say that, it means Advanced Certificate for Executives in Management, Innovation, and Technology. You can earn an MIT Executive Certificate, which is just a completion of 4 programs where at least one of the 4, or at least 3, apologies, at least 3 of the 4 come from your chosen certificate track, and at least 1 is completed in person here at MIT Sloan Executive Education on campus. So the 3 out of 4 are different certificate tracks that are available to you or located on our website. We'd love for you to look through those. But you can also earn an ACE, and the ACE certificate is 25 total program days. That's a lot longer than your 4 programs completed. So your ACE is a lot more in-depth work, and at least 3 program days will be earned if you complete this program specifically. So just to reiterate, we have both the executive certificate and the ACE certificate. And I will send it back over to Brian to complete out this webinar.
All right, thanks, Lauren. I think we're doing great with time here. I want to make sure all of you understand that we're here to answer your questions. So in just a couple minutes here, after we talk about some of the key dates, we're going to launch into answering your questions. So I want to remind you that there's the Q&A, which is one of those buttons down there on the bottom, and the chat. And if you have a question that you don't want us to forget, put it in the Q&A because it stays there until we answer it. All right, let me talk a little bit about the key dates. This just shows you the calendar run. I'm not going to go through all of the things, the key dates, but the important thing to know is that I believe this launches on November 14th. And we end in February. And some of the things that don't change, and those are those red dates there, we have specific faculty webinars. So one of the things that you saw the faculty there, Renee and Matthew and Stephen, of course, though we have key dates where they present on specific topics in a live webinar. And those are the red dates that you see there, November 28th, I think that's Matthew, presenting, and Stephen Eppinger wraps up the whole course with a final presentation at the very end, where a few teams are given the opportunity to present to Stephen and get live feedback. So a lot going on, and we try and make sure that we know you're all busy, so we try and make sure that you know when those activities are happening. All right, let's move on to the next slide there. Just to wrap this whole thing up and start opening this up to questions, it looks like we'll have about 15 minutes or so to answer all of your questions. And my experience has been that folks have a lot of questions, so we want to leave time to answer those. On the completion of this course, we really hope that you will be able to use the design thinking process to generate and evaluate new product and service concepts. And that is really at the heart of what we want you to be able to do is to really get into that mindset of design thinking and understand how to use that in your own practice. Using that real win worth it framework, you'll be able to kind of step through and evaluate new ideas and have a path forward, know how to implement a proven plan and execute a prototype. We don't ask you to make a prototype in this course. We do have a whole module devoted to how you would do that, but making a prototype could be a course in and of itself, and that is a difficult thing to do when you're on different continents. Some of your teammates probably won't be right next door to you, but we will go over that, and you should have an understanding of how to do that. And then lastly, we go over some of the logistics of systems. So selecting a product architecture and evaluating economics of product development. And then lastly, we have a whole module devoted to sustainability, what I call the Design for X. When I was in graduate school, we talked about designing for specific things, designing for manufacturability, among other things, but you can fill in that X with whatever you like. And sustainability is an important topic that arises in any type of design that we talk about now. And so we devote an entire module to that as well. All right, let's move on here. I think we are, oh, well, here we go. There's a little bit of a participant profile, talks a little bit about what our average participants in past runs have kind of their background. But what I'd like to do is open up and answer some questions. I see a whole bunch going through here. So let me take a look here. By the way, there are questions in the Q&A as well as the chat. And if you open up your Q&A window, I'll make some of these live so you can, you guys can see the questions. And I'll go back and forth between the chat and the Q&A. Marcel is asking about invite for the start date. And do you receive a schedule up front? Yes, I can't answer the question about the invite for the start date. Maybe program support might be able to answer that, but you do receive a schedule. You will be able to access the website, and we have, once you're on the Canvas website, we use Canvas, there is a calendar there that shows you all of the activities that are going on. So hopefully that would help you get started. Carol was asking if the online classroom is interactive, and are the instructors and other classmates directly accessible? So that's a great question. The online classroom, and when you say that, Carol, I think you're asking specifically about the office hours, and those are interactive. We have 2 office hours a week, which the learning facilitators run, and during that, it is live. You have an opportunity to ask questions directly, just like a normal office hours, and that content in the office hours is tailored to the needs of the students. So we always come with an agenda to cover old material, to provide content, but the goal is to answer questions. So often office hours go in a different direction if students have lots of questions about a particular area. So they are designed to give you interactive support to answer your questions and to help you move forward and really understand the content. The other classmates, we have a list of people and you have the opportunity to contact them directly. And the teams are encouraged and do set up their own method of communication. You might, we have a lot of students who use Zoom, just like we're using here, and they set up their own meeting rooms and meet regularly, just like we're meeting here, but just for those teams. All right, let me toggle back over to the chat here. I know there's a bunch of questions going by, and all right, a lot of great questions. Oh, Liliana asked, which educational background is expected to successfully complete this course? That's a great question. You don't have to have any specific educational background. We'll step you through the whole process right from the beginning. I'm trying to think of how to make a joke about this. I guess the educational background that you might need is enough technology background to be able to navigate the complexities of dealing with a worldwide cohort at this point. But really, you don't need to be trained as an engineer, a designer. You don't need any of that. We will give you the tools that you need and help you through the process. So that shouldn't deter you from joining the class. Anita asks, are the live sessions, and again, I'm over in the chat if folks are looking at that window, are the live sessions and office hours scheduled during the workday or in the evening on the weekend? That's a great question, Anita. I'm chuckling a little bit because it really depends where in the world you are. So far, in this last run that we're teaching right now, office hours are scheduled at 7 in the morning for me, but I'm in the Pacific time zone in the United States. So depending on where you are, if you're in Asia, that would be in the evening. If you're on the East Coast, that'd be right around lunchtime or mid-morning. So we try and schedule those office hours and times that people are available. And we've done this through a history of trying out certain times and watching our office hour participation. So we try and choose the times that work best for the most people. And they are recorded. So you do have an opportunity to go back and view those at any time that you want if you're unable to attend one. Of course, that means you miss the interactive part of the office hours, but you do have access to all of the learning facilitators. You're able to email them with your questions, and we tend to get back to students and their questions pretty quickly. All right, let me move over to the Q&A window over here. Patients ask, well, I have a webinar on December 25th. It's Christmas Day. We shouldn't have one on there. I think that was probably circled on the calendar because it is a holiday. In fact, for this particular run, we take 2 or 3 weeks off during the holiday time. And we give you all of that content for those of you who want to continue to work, but we don't have any assignments due during that time period. Okay, there is a question here. This one always comes up, the difference between the MIT course and the Stanford course. I do have my degrees from Stanford, so I'm very familiar with the Stanford pedagogy. The Stanford, you know, this is a good question. I'm not sure. I have not been on the Stanford course to look at it most recently. But what I think I can tell you, one of the major differences is that this course is interactive, and you do have course leaders who are there to provide office hours. The last time I checked in with the Stanford course, it was self-run, and there were not any interactions with course leaders. And that, I think that's the fundamental distinction, is you don't have the guidance that you have in this course and the ability to bounce your ideas and get help from actual people. I should log on and take a look at their course. There is a little bit of difference in the pedagogy, but it's fairly similar in that respect. That the idea of design thinking is not something that Stanford or MIT owns, but we all have different paths to get our participants to that design thinking stage. Okay, all right. Somebody asked, this certificate counts from strategy and innovation track. Does it also count in the management and leadership course? I don't know if maybe Lauren or Isabella might be able to answer that question.
Sorry, Brian, do you mind just repeating that? My audio cut out just there.
Yep, there was a question that might have been answered by program support. There was a question about whether this counts for some of the other tracks. I think I lost the question, it disappeared.
So in order to achieve a track, you have to, or achieve an executive certificate, you have to take 3 programs in one track and then another program in a different track. So this program will only count towards one track, but it can be applied to 2 separate executive certificates. So it could be within track for, say, your strategic leadership executive certificate, but then you could then apply it to, you know, that extracurricular program for another executive certificate. So it only counts in one track, but you can apply it to 2 executive certificates. So you could potentially take 6 programs and earn 2 different executive certificates.
Great,
and your executive certificate builds towards your ACE. So you can certainly, you know, complete an executive certificate, and then those 4 programs will count towards your ACE.
Thank you, Isabella. Lots of great questions here, folks. Hopefully we'll be able to get to most, if not all of them. Carol asked whether or not the instructors are academic professionals or have they actually worked in the areas they teach. So a good question. All of us have worked in the areas that we teach, and some of us are academic professionals, and some of us are both. And I could go on at great length. There's actually an academic paper published about the intersection of design practitioners, design thinkers, and design academics. But to give you an example in this particular run, I was a professor of design for almost 15 years and have taught at Stanford and Northern Arizona University, where I was the director of design for practice. Both Jen and Jerome teach graduate or assisting graduate level courses currently at MIT, and all 3 of us have worked in the professional realm. So I've had a consulting business with my wife, who is also a product designer, for about 20 years now. And both Jerome and Jin have worked in private practice as well. So not only have we had some teaching experience, and of course at various levels, but we have all worked in design as well. So there's a lot of talent that is brought to you through the learning facilitators as well. So Frank, I'm back over in the Q&A over here. That question, Carol, was from the chat. I'm going to make this live so you can see the question there. Frank asked if design thinking provides solutions or methods for non-product specific areas. So problem solving in finance areas or in the ERP system. So I don't know what ERP is, but that doesn't matter. And I'll tell you why. The answer to this is absolutely yes. Design thinking is a process that you step through. And in my view, it doesn't matter whether it's a product or a service. And I say this frequently during the course, a service is just a different product. So the goal is to provide solutions, and the design thinking process is a means by which you can step back and look for innovative ideas. So the answer is yes. Looking for solutions and needs in any area that doesn't have to be a product. And we have folks who work for nonprofits that aren't looking to have big business solutions. So in other words, they're not looking for the next Airbnb or the next Apple or Microsoft or trying to pursue an idea like that. There's folks on teams that are looking for solutions for nonprofits in small areas or in educational arenas as well. And this process is valuable for all of that. And of course, we do step through the worth it part of that anyways, because even if you're a nonprofit, you have to be able to get the resources back that you put in, but that scale is different. So, Frank, the answer is absolutely yes, it does apply to any area you're looking for some type of solution. So Syed's asking about IDEO offering a course on design thinking. I think the difference specifically here is that this is an educational course with learning facilitators that are here to answer your questions and step you through the process. IDEO offers materials and resources online for you to use, but not coherently as a guided course. And of course, I'm very familiar with the IDEO process that was born out of the Stanford product design program. Many of my colleagues and friends work there and run some of their different programs. And that's really the big difference. IDEO is a business that wants you to help you understand how their process works. And this is an educational program to help you interactively understand the process. Okay. Carolina, I don't know if this question was answered for you, and maybe Isabella can look at that in the Q&A, and I'll leave that there for a moment. Maybe she can type in an answer to answer that question specifically. Carolina is asking about the difference between the PG diploma in innovation and design thinking offered by Emeritus in collaboration with MIT and maybe the Columbia Business School. So I read that out loud for some of you because I think you can't see it unless I make that live. So maybe I'll leave that there for Isabella or Lauren to type in and answer if you'd like, unless you want to answer that live, Isabella.
No, I can take that offline. Okay,
great. So Matej, you're asking about what kind of business I run. I'll answer that quickly for you. I have a product design consulting business. My wife and I, we help people take products to market, and that ranges anywhere from, I'll think of the most extreme examples. We once worked on a military Humvee, which that's the only military project we've ever worked on, but usually they're consumer products. So people come to us and they want to understand how to manufacture and how to perhaps make their ideas real. So sometimes we get people who come in and have just an idea and they want to figure out how to turn it into a real product. Other times we have people who come to us and say, hey, can you help us take this to manufacturing, because we're at the point where we just need help learning the manufacturing process. So we really, I practice what I preach here in this course and have experience actually helping people in the real world do what we're trying to teach you guys here. All right. Lots of great questions, everyone. I'm gonna toggle back over to the chat here. And Isabel and Lauren, if you see some question that comes up that we haven't tackled, please jump in and kind of point our direction over there. All right, it looks like there's a whole bunch in the Q&A, and I'm going to stick over here for now. Okay, Anna asks, I saw some, I'll make this live so you can all see it. I saw some courses from Emeritus as well. I read another question with info about the different courses. Can you have that info as well? And so Anna, I'm going to let program supporter Isabella send you some information on that. There's a whole bunch of different courses that Emeritus offers. This is just one of many of them. Okay. I'm looking through the questions here. Let me see. Okay, somebody says, some innovations are not empathy-based, but they're game changers in the industry. Will this be covered? Well, I'm not entirely sure I understand that question, because I would argue that everything is empathy-based. For example, if you look at Airbnb, Airbnb was empathy-based. And if you think of empathy, it's not, oh, you're feeling bad, how can I help you? Empathy really is understanding somebody's situation. So if you look at Airbnb in particular, these were a couple of people who were thinking about how to travel and how to make a little bit of money or to save money. So they put themselves in the shoes and the experience of folks who were trying to do what they wanted to do. And that is empathy. And Airbnb, of course, was a big game changer. I think we have just a couple minutes left. And so I know there's lots of questions here, and we're probably not going to be able to get to all of them. But let me take a look. Oh, there's some questions about teams. So let me go ahead and answer that. I saw some questions earlier about getting on a team, and what if you don't like your team? How do we help facilitate that? We try and make sure that in the very least, you can choose the time zone in which you're awake. So we ask people, we group people in areas where we know that they're likely to be awake. Now, that may not be your situation. Maybe you're one of those people who is up at 2 in the morning and sleeping during the day, but you'll have the opportunity to choose that in the very least. You do have an opportunity to interact and to choose ideas that you're interested in before you join a team. So we do have ways that we try and make that as successful as possible. Of course, we can't control that. We can't make it perfect, and we try and address problems as they arise. So if you really don't get along with your team, we try and take some proactive steps to help you with that. All right, we are right at 45 minutes after the hour. And so I want to thank all of you. I apologize that we didn't get to all of your questions, but the fact that there are so many is fantastic. I believe you will be able to, if we didn't get to those questions, you can probably send us an email with that question, and we can answer it. But hopefully we've given you enough information to understand the course and what it's all about. And if there's logistic questions, you can join the course and of course continue those questions as well. I personally hope to see you in November when we start the course. And I want to thank Isabella and Lauren for joining us and talking about the MIT end of the course as well, and to program support for doing all of the hard work in the background, running the slides and making sure that a lot of these logistical questions are answered and taken care of. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us. And thank you to Isabella and Lauren. And have a wonderful day, everybody.